Hi, welcome back. This is a screencast on how to work with an output file from SPSS to export your figures and put them into a Word document. This is, I think, the first step in starting to build your course project. And let's just go ahead and get started. So what I've done is I have opened SPSS. I opened the data, the syntax file, I ran my syntax file, and then I saved my output and quit SPSS, okay? The idea here is that once I have my output file, I don't need anything else. I should just be able to work with it, okay? So that file is actually called output1, and I'm gonna go ahead and double click on it to open. This is just my machine, my file explorer. So here we go. Now it is going to open SPSS because the output file is that sort of, it's SPSS file format. So when you open it, it is going to go through the steps of opening SPSS. But you'll notice when you open it that your data file isn't actually open and it didn't open your syntax. So it's basically just launching SPSS so that you can see this dumb thing, okay? So I've already run all my analysis, all my things, which was basically, creating these 6 variables. If I were so inclined, I could modify the Scatterplots from here. So I would just double click on it and then do some stuff in here. So like perhaps change all of the plots to be different colors. I might go with blue. Isn't that nice? That looks very nice. Okay. So then I would close this chart. And those changes are reflected here, okay? Now I could do this one of 2 ways. I can copy this as an image and just paste it into Word. So that's one way I can do this. And then, paste, voila, okay? And then well, that's one way to do it. So just copy and paste from the output. Another way to do this is to, once you have all of the scatter plots that you like, basically just go through and export. So I'm actually going to take a second and fix all of these the way I want them, which is to say to make their dots, their little plots here, blue. So let's make that blue. Once I have done that part of the output, I just changed all the colors of my scatter plots. So once I've done that, I want to go ahead and save this as a another output file. We can call this 3. And then I'm going to export it. So if I'm going to go File, Export. Now the cool thing about this is that I can take all of this output and just move it to something like a Word document, all right? As you can see, you have a couple different default options here. We could put it in Excel, we could put it into just text files, or just do the graphics only. I'm going to actually do graphics only and hit actually, JK, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to I'm going to export this to a Word document. And then once you do that, you just can change where you want it to be stored at. Right now it's already in Course Project. So I'm going to actually do, give it a different name. Actually, I can do it from here. So let's call this Scatterplots and hit OK, and then click OK again. Okay, now the one downside to doing it this way is that it's going to export all of the stuff I've done up to the scatter plots, which right now it's not that big of a deal because they're just frequencies and such. But that may not be something that you want to do based on just not wanting to have that in your life. So here it is, Scatterplots. So when we open this document, you'll see like all of this stuff that we had done previously in the project. And I mean, like, we're talking about 16 pages of this stuff. But you can just like go and highlight it all and delete it, because all your scatter plots are at the end. They're the last 5 commands in your syntax. So highlight, delete. Okay. Now for your project, you're going to be turning in a file that has your syntax in it. So all of the syntax that gets kind of printed or exported or spit out when you do your analysis, we don't need to have that in this Word document. So you just have to go through and take all those out. There's only 5 of them, so it's not that big of a deal. Now, for figures and tables, one of the things that we're going to need to do is we're also going to need to apply a caption. And the best way to do it is by clicking on the figure or the image and just going right click and insert caption. And here we want all of them to go above the figure or the table or whatever. And since this is going to be a figure, we'll go figure, but if it were a table, we'd call it table. And then here we're going to call it figure 1, and then whatever is in this scatter plot. So in this case, this is scatter plot of infant mortality and percent foreign born. So foreign born 2012 to 2016. Okay, so then we do that. And like an idiot, I managed to put that below. I don't know how I just did that. So we're just gonna like cut that and delete the caption. That's annoying. And then insert caption. And this goes above and paste. Okay. And then okay. And as you can see, it dropped out the colon when I did that. So there we go. Right now my default font is Courier New. It's not the sexiest font out there, but it'll do. Or if you're so inclined, go ahead and change it up. I like Arial too. So that's what I would do if you are ahead of the game with your project and your quizzes and everything. You could go ahead and do this part, just kind of go through and pull all of your figures out. And then when you have all of your scatter plots into your document, you could also put the captions on, and each of these is going to need a 1-paragraph description. So you can do it now, or you can do it at the end of the quarter when you're assembling the project. I think it's better to do it now. So what I would say here is that there appears to be generally a negative trend or a negative pattern or a negative association between infant mortality rates and the percent foreign born in Chicago community areas. So what this means is as the percent foreign born in a community area increases, okay, so it goes from 10% to 20% to 30% up to 60%, the infant mortality rates for those community areas declines. Okay, so the highest infant mortality rates in Chicago or in communities that have very little foreign-born residents, very few foreign-born residents. So like this highest infant mortality rate, which is like probably 21 deaths per 1,000 births, appears to have about 1% foreign-born residents. This community area here, that looks like it might be about 10% foreign born with an infant mortality rate that is near 0. So this would be evidence of a negative association between percent foreign born and infant mortality rates. And so when we do our description, how we want to do it is we say, we always reference the figure, and then needs one paragraph. So for me, I'm going to start with figure. Ooh, that Courier New is still showing up, isn't it? So go ahead and change this to Arial or Arial, however you say it. Figure 1 above shows the association between community level Okay, so we've got that first sentence as a description of what it is that we're looking at, and then 2 to 4 sentences with further details. Okay, so shows. And this is one of those things where we can play with the language. All right, there's not one right way to do this, but there's a lot of wrong ways to do it. All right. So right ways to do this, basically just trying to keep the emphasis on the data. We're not going to talk about us. We're not going to say like, in looking at the figure above, I thought about, or I was curious about, I was perplexed by, I was surprised by. None of that language, all right? We're going to use third person as much as possible, and when we need to use like personal or point of view, then we do, but we try to keep the focus on third person. So we could say these data indicate a negative association between community, you could just say community level IMRs and proportion of residents who are foreign. Actually, you could say proportion of foreign-born residents. Okay. Now, first thing to note here is that we're starting the document. This is the first thing that we're actually writing about. IMRs, I probably should have spelled that out up here. So that's cool. I can just put it in here, IMRs. And then these data indicate a negative association between community level IMRs and proportion of foreign-born residents. Okay. You could also have said percentage of foreign-born residents. Percentage of foreign-born residents in the, yeah. These data indicate a negative association between community level IMRs and percentage of foreign-born residents. Okay. And so there's a one statement describing what this is. Now, it may not be the best time to actually start doing this because you haven't learned about correlations yet. Correlations are the actual statistical tests that we would use to test this. So if you feel the need to kind of put this on hold until after we cover correlations, I think next week, that is absolutely fair. But I also think this is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, for me anyways, like I see a very negative linear trend here. But it's understandable if you don't quite get it yet. So we have this one sentence describing this pattern, and then I'm going to further elucidate on this. I'm going to say something along the lines of community areas with the lowest levels of, could say fewest foreign-born residents have IMRs that are among the highest in Chicago. Okay. Conversely, and so that would suffice, all right. But that's also that sort of community areas with the fewest foreign-born residents. That's only one side of this. We could also take it to the other side and say, conversely, community areas with the largest foreign-born populations have some have relatively low IMRs. Okay. So like this community area here, 60% of the population is foreign-born. IMR of 5 deaths per 1,000 births, pretty low. This community area here looks like it's about 48% foreign-born, also really low IMR. Same here. This community area looks like it's maybe 45% has an IMR that's, looks like it's 6 or 7. So that's the other sort of part of this, the other part of the story, the other side of the story. All right, so that would suffice for one of a paragraph describing this scatter plot. So that is how you do that. You would do that for all your paragraphs, and you do that for all your scatter plots. And I think there's no harm in getting that started now, but I also don't know your life. Some of you may feel like it's better to wait until the end of the quarter when you're starting to assemble this project. That's fine too. Mini project 2 is going to have a bunch of stuff in it. We're going to be creating 2 new variables, a north side versus south side variable, and then a north side, west side, and south side variable. We're also going to be doing t-tests, Man-Whitney U. We're also going to do an ANOVA and Kruskal-Wallis, and I think we might actually do a correlation. Yeah, we should probably go ahead and do correlations in mini project 2. So there will be a bunch of stuff that we need to deal with then. And so you could choose to take all your mini project 2 stuff and export it to Word, and then have that be like, you just combine the 2 documents if that's what you want to do, or you do all the stuff from mini project 2, export it to Word, and then go back and do this part of it. That's okay too. Ultimately, by the end of the quarter, we just want to have a document, a Word document that has all of your scatter plots, all of your tables, all of your means comparison table, your everything like that in one place. So how you choose to do that is up to you. You are a grown up. I'm going to assume that you can handle it. Okay. If you have any questions or concerns, please do email me. I will get back to you. Thanks.